Peace, everyone. How you doing? Today's show title is Tupac Shakur Murder Trial. Opening statements. The case finally takes center stage. But more than that, I'm gonna play the opening statement from Mr. I don't know his name. You'll hear it all, people. Let's just deal with it.
Good morning. On September 7th, 1996, Tupac Shakur came to Las Vegas to attend a Mike Tyson fight. After the fight, Tupac, along with Suge Knight, Trayvon Lane, and other people that were with that group, ran into a person named Orlando Anderson. And Orlando Anderson is the defendant's nephew. And when they encountered Orlando Anderson sitting by himself, they attacked. And that attack was captured on video. Then, a few hours later, Tupac Shakur and Suge Knight drive down Flamingo Road to Club 662, where Tupac is scheduled to perform a concert. Then 2.5 hours later, after Tupac and Suge engaged in the beating of Orlando Anderson, they are gunned down. Tupac is gunned down in a drive-by shooting from a white Cadillac in an act of revenge. During those 2.5 hours, you will learn that the defendant was escalating and planning the retribution for the beating of his beloved nephew. Now, let's be clear. Dwayne Davis did not pull the trigger. But what he did do was plan the retaliation for the beating of his nephew. You will learn that Dwayne Davis got the gun. You will learn that he got into a white Cadillac. You will learn when the opportunity presented itself for retribution, Dwayne Davis made sure that the shooters were armed and ready to execute their revenge. And remarkably, you will learn that from Dwayne Davis himself. But to understand what happened on September 7th, 1996, on the streets of Las Vegas, we need to go about 275 miles west to the city of Compton, California. What you'll learn is that Compton is about 10 square miles. But in the mid-1990s, those 10 square miles were occupied by over 30 gangs claiming its territory. And important to this case, there are two gangs, Mob Piru and the Southside Compton groups. Let's talk a little bit about the Mob Piru. The Mob Piru is a group that associated with the color red. And you'll hear that Suge Knight, the person who was driving Tupac Shakur that night, grew up in the neighborhood of Mob Piru. But by the mid-1990s, he had become a very successful CEO of the record label Death Row Records. But despite, or maybe because where he came from, you'll hear that Suge Knight continued to employ Mob Piru gang members as part of Death Row. They would act as unofficial security, and other times they would engage in, let's call them other acts, on behalf of Suge Knight. But Death Row in the mid-1990s was one of the most successful record labels around. They had artists such as Snoop Dogg, Dr. Dre, and of course, Tupac Shakur. And in 1996, Tupac Shakur was maybe the largest and biggest, most successful rapper around. He had just sold, released All Eyes on Me, a double album that was met with huge success. Additionally, Tupac Shakur was a movie star, having appeared in a number of movies in critically acclaimed roles. He has at times been referred to as an icon. But for the purposes of this case, what you need to know is that Tupac Shakur was not a gangster. He was a hip-hop artist associated with the Mob Pirate. Now, the other gang that's important to know here is the Southside Compton Crips. And when it comes to Southside, Dwayne Keefe D. Davis was the leader of the Burris Street faction of the Southside Compton Crips. And while Suge Knight rose to prominence in his neighborhood due to the money that he was bringing in through the music industry, Dwayne Davis rose to prominence in his neighborhood because he was a very successful, large-scale drug trafficker. And you will learn that that is how one moves up in the world of gangs, by bringing in money to the neighborhood. The other thing you'll learn is that Orlando Baby Lane Anderson was his nephew and also a highly respected member of the Southside Compton Crips. Now,
So as you can see, the prosecutor, because he's not defending himself for Tupac, he's prosecuting Keefe D. He's laying it out. 96, he's laying it out. He's telling you what's going on, Mob Pirate rules and Southside Compton Crips. He's laying it out.
Now, as part of this case, you're going to hear another name, Eric Zip Martin. Now, Eric Zip Martin is not a member of the Southside Compton Crips. In fact, he's based out of New York. He's involved in the drug trade and knows Dwayne Davis as a result of both their involvements in the drug trade. Dwayne Davis from the West Coast, Eric Zip Martin from the East Coast. And one of the connections that Dwayne Davis gets through his association with Zip Martin is with Sean Puffy Combs, who was then the CEO of Bad Boy Entertainment.
So we all know about Sean Puffy Combs, his situation. He's been in jail for a minute now due to the baby oil and all the other stuff, which is, we know it's not baby oil, it's some other chemical, but they use it like baby oil and stuff. Now he's going to tell us about his parts.
Sean Combs wanted some security when he came out to the West Coast. He was worried about Mob Piru. He was worried about the members of Death Row Records. And so Dwayne Keefe D. Davis agreed to be around to act as unofficial security for Sean Combs and his artists when they came out west. In order specifically.
Now remember, the video Made Niggas by Tupac that was on the Super Cop soundtrack or whatever. They made that video saying Puffy and Big was coming to the West Coast to move drugs. That's what the video was supposed to be about. Puffy and Big coming to the West Coast to take over the drug trade. Now we got two known drug dealers, and this is how they meet. Puffy's involved in it. So we're getting it laid out. I don't know who else talking about it or dealing with it like this, but we're hearing it.
To ensure there are no problems with Mob Pyro and Death Row Records. And this took a rivalry between Mob Pyro and Southside Compton Crips and escalated it. And those tensions boiled over in the Lakewood Mall in the summer of 1996. There, you'll hear that Trayvon Lane, a member of the Mob Pyro associated with Death Row Records, was there with other members of Mob Pyro in order to do some shopping. Lakewood Mall was a mall nearby Compton. You'll also hear that Baby Lane Anderson, Orlando Anderson, the defendant's nephew, was there. Now, Trayvon Lane that day was wearing a chain with a Death Row medallion. And there was a fight that occurs between the Mob Pyro group and the Southside Compton Crips. And at one point, that chain is pulled off Trayvon Lane's neck. Now, what happened to that chain is an issue of much dispute. Not everybody agrees. But the act of disrespect of pulling the death row chain and the brawl that occurs further escalates this heated rivalry. And what you'll learn is that these two men, Trayvon Lane and Orlando Baby Lane Anderson, they encounter each other again, this time in Las Vegas. So that brings us back up to September 7th, 1996, here in Las Vegas. Again, Mike Tyson is fighting Bruce Seldon. He disposes of him in less than a round, in a round. Doesn't take a full round. And then after the fight, Tupac Shakur, Suge Knight, and the people that are here with, they leave. And among his group is Trayvon Lane. And that is why this fight occurs. Trayvon Lane and the death row group sees Orlando Anderson standing by himself, and they decide to attack him in retribution for what happened at the Lakewood Mall. You'll see Orlando Anderson is on the bottom of that group. You see security coming, trying to break this up. And then you'll see Tupac Shakur, Suge Knight, Trayvon Lane, and that group exit the MGM Grand. Now, Orlando Anderson was by himself because when Dwayne Davis purchased the tickets for the Bruce Seldon fight, he got them through a scalper. So everybody that came with Dwayne Davis were seated separately throughout the fight. And so Orlando Anderson was at that time by himself. You'll see that Mr. Shakur, Mr. Knight, and his group leave the MGM Grand. And you'll see that Orlando Anderson, after being held by security, is questioned for a bit, asked if he wants to press charges. He decides he doesn't want to participate in any type of prosecution and that he doesn't need medical attention. Dwayne Davis hears about this beating. And what you will hear is that in his world, there is no question that a response is required. And you will hear from Dwayne Davis what happens next. Because what happened over the next 2.5 hours is something Dwayne Davis would later describe himself in the secret 2008 interview from his attorney's office with the federal task force. And we'll talk about that interview and the circumstances surrounding that later. But we'll hear about what the next 2.5 hours was. So what we learn is that Dwayne Davis is upset about the beating of his nephew. And frankly, no, that's not an unusual response. What's unusual is the next steps Dwayne Davis takes. Unusual for the normal person, maybe not unusual for in gang culture. Dwayne Davis decides he is going to organize a retaliation, that this beating cannot go unanswered. Then he runs into a person named Zip Martin. Remember the Zip Martin that was a connection with Bad Boy Entertainment from New York? And Zip Martin tells him that he has a gun and that he can come help him out.
Hey, where do you go to? What do you tell Zip right now? You tell Zip, hey, we're going to go handle this shit or whatever?
Yeah, like, y'all want us to come? Like, you know what I'm that it was, they gonna get 662 club.
Who said that?
Everybody.
Everybody.
Yeah, everybody. You know,
Well, how do you know that Zip's got a gun? Did she tell
it
you?
was in a lobby, in the lobby. I got one.
Did you ask her? Do you have one or just tells you, yeah, I got one?
Yeah, that's when they asked me to need help. I said, yeah, okay, cool.
I don't know what he gave you.
Yeah.
So later, Dwayne Davis organizes 2 vehicles to go over to the 662 Club. Before that, he gets the gun from Zip Martin. He goes out to his Mercedes-Benz, gets the gun from Zip Martin, and then after some time, he assembles 2 cars to go to 662 to violently confront Tupac Shakur and Suge Knight for the beating of his nephew. And you'll hear that Dwayne Davis wasn't initially in the white Cadillac. He goes into a van, and Orlando Baby Lane Anderson, they go in a white Cadillac, and they go to Club 662, waiting for Tupac Shakur, waiting for Suge Knight, waiting for this violent confrontation. And what you'll learn is that Tupac Shakur and Suge Knight don't show up while they're there.
We went up to 626, they didn't show up. We waited about 15, 20 minutes, they didn't show up. So it's like, let's go get some liquor. We stopped at the liquor store. I got out of the van and they had to jump in the Cadillac.
So what you hear Dwayne Davis say is he got out of the van and goes into the Cadillac. And the plan at that point is to go to a liquor store, get some booze, and then go back to the Las Vegas Strip and party. What the original intention was before Orlando Anderson was beaten at the MGM Grand. But on the way back to the Las Vegas Strip, they see a caravan of cars. And that caravan included Tupac Shakur and Suge Knight. And in that white Cadillac, before the shooting occurs, Dwayne Davis explains that the driver is Terrence T. Brown. In the rear driver's side is DeAndre Dre, or Big Dre Smith. In the rear passenger side is Orlando Baby Lane Anderson. And Dwayne Davis himself, DVD, is in the front passenger side. And this is how Dwayne Davis explains the murder of Tupac Shakur.
So, as you can see, it's very detailed. It's very detailed. Tell you where everyone's sitting, tell you how they went to 662, didn't see him, went to go get some liquor, but because Baby Lane, Orlando, had got jumped at the MGM, retaliation must happen. So let's listen some more.
Yeah. These little liquor stores right there that we came up on Harlem at the Las Vegas Boulevard. And shit. Here they come in that BMW and get your car and brawls. Tupac. We like, there you go. Made a U-turn. We wasn't supposed to make it. Just wanted a U-turn. They was in the middle lane. We just pulled up on the side, checked every car to see where they was.
So what directed your attention to him was some girl shouting at Tupac?
Tupac, he gave himself away. Otherwise, he would have gone away. He always done what he wanted to do. He gone.
You did a U-turn, so then you pull alongside of it. You guys are in the car. Have you already handed him the gun at this point, or at what point do you hand him the gun?
I thought he was going to pull on my side. You know, that's one of them that going to the out, man. You know, he pulled on his side.
So you were finna blast if you had to, or you were just?
Yeah, if you would have been on my side, I would have blast.
Okay. So you hand the gun to the back seat.
Yeah.
You can hear Benny?
Yeah, Dre was like, no. And Lane's like, dude, fuck.
So what you hear Dwayne Davis admit that as they see Tupac Shakur and Suge Knight driving to Club 662, Dwayne Davis, along with Terrence Brown, DeAndre Smith, and Orlando Anderson, decide to make a U-turn, confront Tupac Shakur and Suge Knight. Dwayne Davis has the firearm. It's a firearm he got from Eric Von Zit Martin, and then he passes it to the back. Dwayne Davis says that if they were on his side, if Tupac Shakur and Suge Knight were on his side of the vehicle, he would have shot them himself. But because they were on the other side, he handed it to DeAndre Smith. DeAndre Smith, according to Dwayne Davis, did not want to shoot at that time, so Orlando Anderson shot into that car. Dwayne Davis explains this over and over again.
Literally, on the street.
Okay, Lane starts blasting.
So, for y'all info, I'm a big Tupac fan. Everybody that ever listened to this know that I like playing this music. The Machiavelli Trained Soldier is a statement that I like to make and everything. So my computer been down the last couple days with this trial going on and everything. The Wi-Fi hasn't been working in this little small Arkansas town, so I ain't been able to speak about it or follow it or nothing. But I gave y'all 18 minutes of the opening. Now I'm still watching and paying attention, so come back. We will be watching and paying attention to this trial and all the key figures. Even Puffy. Or his more recent name, Diddy. We will be watching and paying attention to his involvements with Keefy D and the drugs and blah, blah, blah. So with that said, leave a comment under the video if you like. I will respond. Y'all have a nice night. See y'all tomorrow. Peace.